Welcome you all in the last lecture of our idea of cultural studies. That is our chapter number first. So in this lecture, we are moving with the last part of this chapter. Till the time we have talked about Ferdinand de Saussure, then semiotics and signification, then Marxism and ideology in the last class. And now we are moving further to structuralism and culturalism. So in this, structuralists saw culture as the primary object of study. Before that, we have talked about Marxism and its influence on culturalism. Now we are talking about culturalism and its influence, structuralism and its influence on culturalism. So the structuralists, in the beginning also we have talked about Saussure. He is also a structuralist and his influence was there. So other elements are also there that we will discuss here. The structuralists saw culture as the primary object of study and approached it by the analysis of representative textual forms. See, when we are talking about culture and structuralism, so this structuralism, they saw culture as the primary object of study. In the same way, the structuralists, they have focused on language, structuralists, they have focused on mythology, structuralism, they have focused on different ideas. So in the same sense, they focused on culture as the primary object of study, and in this they approached it by the analysis of representative textual forms. In different textual texts we can find out the cultural involvement into it, because every text, it has some cultural story. Every text that tells us the different ideology, thoughts and all these things. So obviously in it we can find out structures. The forms and structures that produced cultural meanings were the center for their attention. Now this structuralist critics, what they did, they particularly focused on the forms and structures that produced cultural meanings, and these elements were the center for their attention, and so they tended to be less interested in the culturally specific forms. The culturalists and British historians resisted structuralism as it was. Culturalists and also British historians, they opposed, criticized structuralism for what they were. And basically this structuralist, what they focused on? They focused on the ideas, how the meaning, cultural meanings get created. Because we know in different culture, the different things would have different meanings. Suppose we have one particular posture, gesture, okay, the same sign that may not have the same meaning in another culture. When culture get changes, automatically the meaning of that particular object, the meaning of that particular gesture, the meaning of that particular sign, that also get changes. And this was the only attention, this was the things these structuralists, they pay their attention towards that. They were interested into it, and so they were less interested in the culturally specific form. Means what culture and culturalism, cultural ideas, they haven't paid that much attention towards that. Instead of that, they paid their attention to the formation of meaning in different cultures. And with Raymond Williams and E.P. Thompson, culturalism retained a stronger sense of the power of human agency against history and ideology. So Raymond Williams, we know he is one of the most important cultural critic. He and another one is E.P. Thompson. With them, culturalism retained a stronger sense of power of human agency. Means how these human beings, they get developed, their evaluation, their ideas. So all these elements, the sense of power that has been communicated with this, communicated by these theorists against history and ideology. It's what history and ideology they communicates, that has been reacted by these Raymond Williams and E.P. Thompson. This structuralism or culturalism split always was a little too neat. Means there was not that much difference between them. It delimited as well as divided the field. Means what culturalism and structuralism. In this, we have a small split, the narrow wall we can say. So it delimited as well as divided the field, and it is now a much less applicable distinction. And in this too, now we don't find that much distinction, and they are continually working on. So next we will move on to influence of Michel Foucault on the cultural ideologies, cultural theory. Michel Foucault is the French theorist, and Foucault has key theoretical influence on the application of the notion of discourse within cultural studies. Now, his notion of discourse is one of the most important term in the modern theories, and he used that, or that theory is applicable within the cultural studies also. And the great benefit of Foucault's work in this regard was its explicit reconnection of text to history. What he do with the help of this, Michel Foucault, or his benefit, that his work in this regard was its explicit reconnection of text to history. He moved on, he used historical methods, he used historical theories, or he applied historical theory to text. And with that also, because every text, as I told you, it has cultural aspect in it. Any text from any era you collect, or you take any text, then we can find cultural aspect into it. And Michel Foucault, he connected text to the history, and he tried to analyze that. And obviously when we move on to history, automatically we get the culture and all these things. There is a work by Michel Foucault, that is Discipline and Punish, that has been published in 1979. And in this work, Foucault examines the discourses which enable the establishment of the prison and other prison. Or the prison means that is the institutions, like the military, the hospital, the school, because in military also we have strict rules, regulations and all these things, and that we have to follow. So it is also like a prison. Then the hospital, in hospital also the same things are there, the rules, regulations, how much money they ask, we have to pay that, which medicines they asked us to bring, we have to give them that. In the school also the same thing, we have to follow rules, regulation, dress code and everything. So these are some of the institutions, prison like institution for Michel Foucault. So he talks about that, and it is in the late 18th century France, and which also structured the specific procedures and disciplines which determined how the inmates experienced their imprisonment. Now in this book, that work, Discipline and Punish, it examines the inmates, means the person in the prison, the inmates means the colleagues in the military, in the hospital, the friends, okay, group, in the school. So all these elements, or these people, is how the inmates experienced their imprisonment. Different people, different individuals who were there in these different institutions. So what were their experiences, what they experienced within their imprisonment, that has been studied by Michel Foucault in that work. Rather than focusing on the reproduction of ideologies, Foucault examined how these enabling discourses directed the operation of power. You see how these institutions established practices and routines which disciplined behavior, defined space, and regulated the experience of time for those placed within their control. Means he hasn't focused much more on the reproduction of ideology, because that are the unconscious way, as we have known how these ideologies get created. We imitate our surrounding, we gather, collect different information from our surrounding, and automatically our ideologies get formed. So Foucault didn't focus on that. Instead of that, Foucault examined how these enabling discourses, means different these guidelines, means these rules, regulations in these different institutions, they directed the operation of power, means whoever have power, because in the classroom the teacher has power, in the school the head teacher or the headmaster, he has power, in military hostels the head of them, the major, he has the power. So in hospitals the doctor has the power. So this power structure is important for us, and how this power structure, with the help of their power, with the operation of their power, they changed or they maintained, they established practices and routines in which disciplined behavior and defined space and regulated the experience of time for those placed within their control. Means whoever were there placed in their control, they have strong changed their behavior, they discipline their behavior, they define different spaces, and they are leading their life according to the ideologies that has been provided to them, or the laws, rules, regulations powered on them. So in this way they lived their life. So Michael Foucault, he focused on this. So in this way we have talked about these different ideas about idea and cultural studies. So here we come to the end of this, and if we see from the beginning itself, we have first of all talked about the Center for Cultural Studies that has been inaugurated in 1964 with Richard Hoggart. Yeah. So from that this movement, actually culture and its study, it was going on from before that also, but from that time different elements emerged and the need for cultural studies arose, and why it arose we have talked about that. So in this way cultural studies get started, and this cultural study now it become one of the most important theory in the modern criticism. So this theory continually get evolved, get modifying, and with the help of other disciplines such as Marxism, Structuralism, Sassou's contribution to this, then Michael Foucault's contribution to this. So all these elements later on get added, and it is becoming popular and popular nowadays. So in this way we come to the end of our chapter number 1st, and in the next week or in the next class we will start our next chapter, either from the same unit or from the other unit. So till the time, study regularly, and I recommend you to go for all the videos from beginning to end in one sitting, and try to prepare your own notes from that. I have also provided some of the notes and important points from this topic. Then also you prepare your own notes in this regard. And if we move on to the another unit, then we will have a unit test on this also, because we have finished the chapter. So thank you very much. Study.